Hello, and welcome to Historical Humans Reads, where we take primary sources and bring them to your screen. I'm Colum Coleman, and today we are reading from The Land of Darkness by Mrs. Oliphant. Margaret Oliphant was a Scottish novelist of the Victorian era who published 176 stories under the name Mrs. Oliphant. Her stories were incredibly popular during her lifetime. However, they declined into obscurity at the end of the Victorian era. Mrs. Oliphant has experienced some resurgence in the 21st century and is now recognized as one of the greatest authors of her time. The Land of Darkness is Mrs. Oliphant's take on purgatory and focuses on the horror of the supernatural unveiled through the lens of the mundane. The original 1888 publication of The Land of Darkness in Blackwood's magazine omitted a number of words for the sake of its audience's sensibilities. However, the first and sometimes last letter of the word was preserved to maintain the authorial intent. Today we will be reading the opening paragraphs of The Land of Darkness by Mrs. Oliphant. And with that, let's begin. I found myself standing on my feet, with the tingling sensation of having come down rapidly upon the ground from a height. There was a similar feeling in my head, as of the whirling and sickening sensation of passing downward through the air, like the description Dante gives of his descent upon Geryon. My mind, curiously enough, was sufficiently disengaged to think of that, or at least to allow swift passage for the recollection through my thoughts. All the aching of wonder, doubt, and fear, which I had been conscious of a little while before, was gone. There was no distinct interval between the one condition and the other, nor in my fall, as I supposed it must have been, had I any consciousness of change. There was a whirling of the air, resisting my passage, yet giving way under me in giddy circles, and then the sharp shock of once more feeling under my feet something solid, which struck yet sustained. After a little while, the giddiness above and the tingling below passed away, and I felt able to look about me and discern where I was, but not all at once. The things immediately about me impressed me first, then the general aspect of the new place. First of all, the light, which was lurid, as if a thunderstorm were coming on. I looked up involuntarily to see if it had begun to rain, but there was nothing of the kind, though what I saw above me was a lowering canopy of cloud, dark, threatening, with a faint reddish tint diffused upon the vaporous darkness. It was, however, quite sufficiently clear to see everything, and there was a good deal to see. I was in a street of what seemed like a great and very populous place. There were shops on either side, full apparently of all sorts of costly wares. There was a continual current of passengers up and down on both sides of the way, and in the middle of the street carriages of every description, humble and splendid. The noise was great and ceaseless, the traffic continual. Some of the shops were most brilliantly lighted, attracting one's eyes in the sombre light outside, which, however, had just enough of day in it to make these spots of illumination look sickly. Most of the places thus distinguished were apparently bright with the electric or some other scientific light, and the delicate machines of every description, brought to the greatest perfection, were in some windows, as were also many fine productions of art, but mingled with the gaudiest and coarsest in a way which struck me with astonishment. I was also much surprised by the fact that the traffic, which was never stilled for a moment, seemed to have no sort of regulation. Some carriages dashed along, upsetting smaller vehicles along their way, without the least restraint or order, either, as it seemed, for their own good sense, or from the laws and customs of the place. When an accident happened, There was a great shouting, and sometimes a furious encounter, but nobody seemed to interfere. This was the first impression made upon me. The passengers on the pavement were equally regardless. I was myself pushed out of the way, first to one side, then to another, hustled when I paused for a moment, trodden upon, and driven about. I retreated soon to the doorway of a shop, from whence, with a little more safety, I could see what was going on. The noise made my head ring. It seemed to me that I could not hear myself think. If this were to go on forever, I said to myself, I should soon go mad. Oh no, said someone behind me. Not at all. You will get used to it. You will be glad of it. One does not want to hear one's thoughts. Most of them are not worth hearing. I turned around and saw it was the master of the shop, who had come to the door on seeing me. He had the usual smile of a man who hoped to sell his wares, but to my horror and astonishment, by some process which I could not understand, I saw that he was saying to himself, "What a damned fool! Here's another of those cursed wretches, damn him!" All with the same smile. I started back and answered him hotly. What do you mean by calling me a damned fool? Fool yourself, and all the rest of it. Is this the way you receive strangers here? Yes, he said with the same smile. This is the way. And I only describe you as you are, as you will soon see. Will you walk in and look over my shop? Perhaps you'll find something to suit you, if you are just setting up, as I suppose. This has been an excerpt from the Land of Darkness on Historical Humans Reads. If you enjoyed this video and like to hear more excerpts from original texts, please subscribe to be notified of the next one. If there is a work you would like to hear, be sure to like the video and leave a comment listing it below. And before we sign off here, please go check out our wonderful new web shop, Humanitarian Collections, where we are currently supporting the LGBTQ community through the Trevor Project. When you purchase from Humanitarian Collections, proceeds will be directed to the Trevor Project to help with suicide prevention among LGBTQ youth. Thank you for listening.